All right, what's up, guys? Happy 10th of June. We are live, MLB members only, but kind of the standard of what we've been doing throughout the MLB season. These early slates, we do members only for everybody. Get you guys a feel of what we offer for paying customers, and then the rest of the slates, you guys get the 5 pack, 5 picks.
Yeah, so if you want more info, more of these regular videos and the write-ups, sign up for the 5 pack today.
All right, if you could click the thumbs up button, that would be great. As far as MLB weather, there's tiny concerns with the Cincy and Pittsburgh games, but outside of that, I mean, they're small. Doesn't seem to be something you should be overly concerned about.
Agreed.
So I was starting to look through this one for a while last night, and honestly, I think you can make cases for pretty much
Yeah,
every pitcher on this slate. So do you have favorites?
it's definitely one of those where you smaller slate, you kind of expect not to have many pitching options, and then you go down and yeah, a lot of these guys are in play for sure. I mean,
Like I could make the case for Sheffield only because he's facing Detroit.
the only one I could see not well, two I can't personally make a case for the Tigers guys and Mitch Keller.
I can make a case for Mitch Keller. It's terrible, and I would never do it. Only because I know like he has enough stuff to be good on any given day. The odds of me rostering him are between 0% and 0%, though.
Yeah, this is just not the spot for Keller, in
No,
my opinion.
no, it's not. I mean, the Dodgers haven't been as good as they can be this year, but we know they're like as good as anything else, right? Especially righties like Keller. The odds are he's probably gets hit today. I'm sure the Dodgers bats will be real popular though.
Yeah, you're right. You're not. I mean, I'm sure they will too. Which probably means that won't be my main stack, but they're still in a much better spot on paper than Keller. But I get what you're saying. Like, if there weren't other all the six guys up top, I can make a better case for Keller. But because we have from Wheeler to Castillo, I think real good cases can be made. So that's how I
All right,
see it.
well let's start talking about Castillo because this one's interesting. So he's mostly been just terrible this year. I mean, that's been well documented, but he looked better last time out. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I even mentioned this last time out. He's pitched to the worst luck in all of baseball by far this year. So while that's not like the end all be all, that means something. There's nothing wrong with his stuff. Like there's no injury that I know of that it seems. So I'm confident that Castillo is going to start looking like the ace coming into the year that we thought he would get to be sooner rather than later.
All right, my biggest deterrent with him, and obviously I don't watch all this starts, was where are the strikeouts? He did strike out 11 against San Francisco a couple weeks back, so kudos for that. But this is a guy who's I would have to assume just by my without looking better than nine Ks per 9 innings throughout his career, and he has not been there this year. So that was always the thing that made me more curious than anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little torn right here. Obviously, he's in one of the better spots of these good pitchers.
For sure, no doubt about it. I mean, and if you tell me Castillo starts getting a lot of love, yeah, I can definitely make a case for Milwaukee bats.
For sure. Well, it's hard not to be able to make a case for Milwaukee bats simply by the fact that the other teams are facing Wheeler, Peralta, Urias, Anderson, etc. So there aren't a lot of places for good offense right here. It looks like Seattle's the only one that looks like good on paper, right?
Yeah,
Well,
Seattle.
and the Dodgers.
Yeah, Seattle and the Dodgers for sure. So yeah, that inherently probably will have Castillo get love. Um,
Like I'm gonna watch the Brewer game today. I can make a case for Castillo, Peralta. I can also make a case for both offenses. Peralta's struggles have come in Cincy routinely.
I meant that Milwaukee's going to get love because of how the slate plays out.
Yeah. So I don't know. This is a real interesting one. I was not sure what I wanted to do. Who do you think the most popular pitcher is?
Urias.
Okay, that's what I thought too, just because he gets the worst team in baseball, or at
Yeah.
least the worst offense in baseball.
Well, one of the worst offense. They don't strike out a lot though. And they've
No, they're
actually
not.
they have not been as bad as you have said they've been. Like I know
Well,
they were good last night.
from a run scoring perspective, I think they average the lowest runs per game, but they don't strike out a ton. So they're more boring from a DFS perspective. But from an offensive real life perspective, they just don't score runs.
No, they don't. But they've also been missing Brian Hayes for most of the year, Colin Moran for most of the year. Now those guys are back in the lineup. Those are probably their two best hitters. So yeah, I think this lineup's better than you do. We'll say that.
Okay, I'm with you. My first thoughts were Urias would be the most popular pitcher. Still doesn't really answer the question. Do you think you would go with right now? Like if you had to set a lineup at 9:01 Central in the morning, what do you think your two pitchers would be?
Well, we haven't even asked that question yet because we haven't gone through all of them yet. So I'll get there in a minute. I think that all these guys are in play. What's your take on Wheeler?
I mean, you don't love the spot, right? I think of Atlanta as a good team. He has been fantastic recently. I mean, he wasn't nearly as good last time out, and he was still 25 DK points. So I'm a little torn right here myself. He's been phenomenal.
Yeah, I am really torn on this slate.
Same.
And your not glowing recommendation of Peralta has me even more torn.
I love Freddie Peralta. I watched his first two starts this year, obviously, since I watch a lot of the Brewers, and they really talked about a major difference in his game being the addition of a third pitch, which is needed for professional starters, right? And he's been, relatively bulletproof all season long. I mean, if you look at his latest starts, 30, 30, 30, except for one that came at Cincy. He's had a few troubles in Cincy at the past. It gives me cause for pause. It doesn't mean I don't like him. I'm a little bit nervous because I've seen him have bad starts in Cincy before. But a lot of those came, prior years when he wasn't as good.
Yeah, I'm going to flip this directly to you. Who would be your two pitchers?
Okay. If I'm thinking gun to head right now,
Yeah.
probably still Peralta Urias.
Okay. I think that I'm choosing between Peralta, Castillo, and Urias.
Okay. And I say this all with very little conviction.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't even seen ownership yet, so it's also hard to speak on.
For sure. If you tell me Peralta and Urias are crazy chalk and Wheeler and Castillo are unowned, I'm a little interested in flipping the script on the ownership today for sure.
Yeah, because all these guys are close. Castillo's more risky than the rest of them, but his upside's just as high as all of them.
And if you told me that Castillo is uber chalk, I'm not at all surprised if he gets hit again today.
Yeah.
And Justice Sheffield outscores him. Now, I'll never actually throw Justice Sheffield on this one, but he does get Detroit.
Yeah, I was actually, these Detroit day games, I was actually thinking about just game stacking that game.
Two bad baseball teams, right? This game can work out any way. We talk about that all the time. We got two bad teams. This game could be 1-0, 10-1, 11-10.
Definitely hard not to at least have some interest in the Seattle side.
Where else do you want to go, right? You want to stack against Wheeler, Peralta, Urias, Anderson? No, not really, of course. I think that it makes too much sense.
So the Dodgers will get a ton of love on this slate, obviously. I have to believe that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Seattle and the Dodgers have to be the chalky offenses, right?
Yeah. I'm not so sure about Seattle just because their lineup looks so ugly on paper.
It does. I think most people are going to struggle to play bats against any of these top guys right here. So I think Milwaukee gets a little bit of love.
I think Milwaukee and Detroit are similarly owned to Seattle.
Okay. No real arguments on that.
Seattle lineup also.
All right, let's break down the offenses in the Seattle-Detroit game. They're not out yet. Wow, let's double check that. Jake Bauer traded the Mariners, man. Bad news, sorry.
Yeah, right. Guess the Mariners are really making a run.
All right, Detroit's lineup, they're rolling Grossman, Scope, Miggy. My boy Haas is back in the lineup today. And then a bunch of guys most of you guys probably don't know. Paredes, Cameron, Goodrum, etc.
Well, Paredes and Cameron's a nice combo right there. Paredes was one of their best prospects, got called up 2 games ago. Hit a walk-off home run last night, but got robbed by Jake Fraley, who took it back in from one of the best catches I've ever seen. And obviously it didn't go out of the park. But, man, 2,100. And then Daz Cameron. If you remember Mike Cameron's son, or Mike Cameron, that's his son.
So you can do, if you want to stack Detroit with all these cheap pieces, you can play any pitchers that you want.
Oh, yeah.
They are going to be loaded up with these cheap guys. And I know Scope has cooled down a little bit after those epically hot games that he had, but He's still getting hits every single day. He's a guy that would be in play for me for sure, even if you don't stack Detroit.
Yeah, definitely. And Haas as well, who wasn't in the lineup yesterday, but right back in there today.
Yeah, disappointing. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Hasn't Miggy actually played decently lately?
Yeah.
I mean, for his low standards at this point of his career.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a 4-game slate. If I'm stacking Detroit, I'll probably have him once. I don't know if I'm going to stack Detroit, but if I were, I would. And then, yeah, it's hard. I do like the Seattle side. Like, they were good for me last night, came through in extras. Seager, this is some of the best defensive plays I've ever seen last night. Seager hit a 3-run homer, got robbed of a 3-run homer in the first inning. Jake Fraley was 0 for his first 3 or 4 and still ended with 13 DK points. Crawford's red hot. I'm not sure how many people want to go here with a lefty starting either. I like Seattle a lot.
Well, I think that's a good point. What I was just going to say, so they got a lefty starting, Tyler Alexander, but he only goes an inning, maybe 2, right?
Maybe, yeah. And I mean, I think they might hit him. So, yeah.
Garcia, I mean, he's not stretched out. So you're going to Detroit's bullpen, I'm going to assume, kind of like the rest of their team, isn't very good.
Sucks. So, yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, this Jake Fraley, who lefty on lefty, I don't think gets any love. He's been really impressive. I've watched a ton of his at-bats. We talked about him like a week ago. I've been impressed. I'll go right back there.
Yeah, I got no arguments on this one. And again, these teams are not great. Their bullpens aren't great. So, yeah, there are days where their offenses won't blow up for you, but it's a pretty good spot to get some runs.
It is. And I like them a lot on paper. I will say, the counterpoint is that I could easily see, like you said, Seattle coming in as chalk with the Dodgers, and makes you think about it because Seattle is, at the end of the day, just not a very good offense, as you mentioned.
No, but our boy Crawford, we brought him up yesterday. He's on fire.
Yeah.
So I can go right back there. And I hope the fact that it looks like a lefty keeps people off of him because it's 1 inning of a lefty. It's 1 at bat, and there's no reason he can't get a hit off of him. Damn, yeah. Haniger is expensive.
Yeah, he is. He's like the only one.
Yeah, he really is.
He's pulled off, too.
He definitely. I mean, you kind of had to assume that he wasn't going to hit 40 home runs and bat 300. So I'm not shocked he's cooled off a little bit.
Yeah, and this Dylan Thomas at 2,600, he was raking in the minor leagues, got called up last night, looked foolish in his first 2 at-bats, foolish. Obviously, the nerves were getting to him. Big 2 RBI single in his last at-bat in extra innings. I mean, I'm all about this lineup, assuming these guys are back in it, which I don't see why they wouldn't be.
I gotcha.
And I don't think people are going to play those guys.
No, probably not. I don't think your average DFS player knows anything about them.
So, yeah. All right, cool.
Then as far as the Dodgers go, I mean, with how they're priced and who's in the lineup today, they're going to be crazy insane chalk, I would assume.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was a little hesitant when you first said it, but I think you're 100% spot on there.
I mean, you got McKinstry and Beatty in the middle of the lineup at 3,500 and 3,300. Belly's only 4,600. Even Betts, who again is not having a great season, but we all know how great Mookie Betts is only 5,200. Oh,
yeah, exactly.
And we mentioned the other day, and I can't believe I didn't pick him on Drafters yesterday. He looked like he was about to get going, and Justin Turner, who had been in a little bit of a slump for a while, is obviously now seeing the ball much better.
Yeah. I'm with you. This whole lineup is in play, and they got cheap guys to make it work also.
All right, so just to kind of run through Mitch Keller, most of you guys can click on his name and see what his numbers look like, and it seems like a pretty easy play. The side note on that is, though, it's more inexperience than lack of stuff with him.
Oh, yeah. He's got real good stuff. It's way more lack of experience than lack of stuff. I don't know if I would call it, well, yes, it is lack of experience, but it's also lack of
composure.
Yeah, lack of composure, lack of being a good pitcher at this point. But stuff is not a question. So, yeah, now flipping it all the way around, on a small slate like this, I do think Keller's in play because if the Dodgers are going to be so chalky, if they don't do good, it's probably because Keller pitches well. Still not where I'm going to land, but yeah.
Yeah, I think if I'm going to be contrarian, I'll just be contrarian and not play the Dodgers very aggressively.
Agreed.
If you want to stack like a couple of the cheap guys here and there, or throw bets into your lineup, I get it. But this is a guy we've seen with nice starts at San Diego earlier last month. San Diego is another really good baseball team. He threw up a really nice quality start, and then got shelled by Cincy, and then had a nice start against the San Francisco team. Got shelled by Atlanta, had a really nice start against Colorado. Only went 2 innings the other day. Do you know the reason behind that?
No, I don't.
Okay, maybe
Oh,
just
wait.
walking, guys.
Yeah, he left. Oh, I don't know. I guess COVID.
I'm not sure
Oh,
100%.
heat-related illness.
Okay. Either way, without seeing the ownership numbers on the slate yet for the day, and those will come out soon, I'm going to assume Dodgers are really, really, really popular. But it's not crazy to think Mitch Keller pitches all right here. And I've been disappointed by the Dodgers almost every time I've used them this season.
Yeah, I get your point. I think Bellinger's got to be the highest owned hitter on the slate, or one of them.
He's such a big name. He's capable of putting up such big DFS points. He's only 4,600. I mean, just not playing him and using a different outfielder is an easy way to be a little different.
Agreed.
So, I mean, I know he was hurt most of the year, but outside of one really good inning, it's not like he's done anything. You assume like he couldn't be good bad today, right?
Truth.
I mean, that was a great inning, but all of his numbers this season came in one inning.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm with you.
Okay. Let's run through the Cincy-Milwaukee game really quickly. We got Peralta against Castillo. So you sound like you're Castillo over the Brewers offense, as you kind of established, and I got no arguments at that point.
Yeah, this game is a wild card for me. Like in Cincy, I could see these offenses like going off. I could see these pitchers pitching well. I'm very torn on this game personally.
It's kind of usually I don't love these 4-game slates, and this one to me is really wishy-washy on which side I want to take. I think I am going to opt for the pitchers in this game, and not saying that I'm only using these two, but I'm going to play for this game to be a pitching duel. I think gun to head, that's where I go.
Yeah, I love talking this slate out with you. I just don't have any like hard stands, which I like to have.
Well, that's how I felt about this game in the beginning, was I didn't have a hard stance. But as we talk it out, I want to take one. And it's not with a lot of conviction, but I'm going to stand with the pitchers on this game.
And I get that. And I think that's like I lean that also. But it makes me think like, is everyone going to lean that?
Well, I don't think anybody's going to pick on Peralta. He's been too good this year. So I do think the Cincy offense is not going to be very popular at all, for good reason. Peralta's been fantastic this season.
Yeah.
And I have no interest, or I really don't, in the Reds bats. I mean, what I said about Peralta not being great in Cincinnati, he's had some rough starts in prior years, but he's been a new guy this year. And even his start the other day wasn't great DFS-wise. I mean, he walked a bunch of guys, really. And he gave up 2 runs. It's not like, he gave up 6 runs in the first inning. He didn't go Carlos Martinez.
Yeah, I actually like that. I didn't even realize that he just faced him in Cincy. I'm about going right back there.
Yeah, I'm with it. So I'll go team pitchers in this one.
Cool.
All right. We didn't really talk much about the Atlanta-Philly game. Wheeler against Anderson. I know you are an Anderson fan. You weren't a fan the other day against the Dodgers because, well, it's the Dodgers. What is your thoughts on this portion of this game?
Again, we talked about this last week. These guys with only 2 pitches can get into trouble real quick, especially if one of those pitches isn't working. And we've seen that with Anderson a bunch this year. I'm worried about him, and I like the Philly bats more than him on this slate.
Okay, I'm with you. Anderson is not on my list of pitchers today. At the end of the day, he's a top 3 scorer. I'm not surprised. I just will not be using him today.
He also throws so many pitches. Like, he has a long leash, but like he hasn't made it through 5 in either of the past 2 starts.
Yeah, he's kind of a guy that maxes out at 6 because he just can't get any further than that.
Yeah, and I'm a fan of his stuff. I think we're going to see – I think he's more like the pitcher we saw last year than this year, like in terms of how his career will be. But Philly hit a walk-off home run last night. I think that this is potentially a good spot for Philly that people might not go to.
I can understand using Philly. I'm more likely to use Philly than Anderson, but I doubt that I actually have the stones to go to Philly today.
Fair enough. And then what about Wheeler in Atlanta?
I will not really be with Atlanta bats today. I'll probably do a 3-entry GPP max. And then, even though I don't like to use too many different pitchers, Zach Wheeler's going to get at least one appearance from me.
I get that.
Atlanta's a pretty good offense, but they also do strike out a lot. So his upside is up there with anybody else on the slate.
This is true. I also think Atlanta's probably going to go under-owned.
Oh, for sure.
And ownership just came out.
Okay, what are you seeing?
Seeing the Dodgers as the most popular, then the Tigers, actually.
Okay. They're so cheap.
Yeah, then the Mariners and Brewers. With the Braves, Reds, and Phillies all kind of lumped together, and then the Pirates way last.
Yeah, I can't even make a case for Pittsburgh, but I get why they're not getting any love. So it's kind of what we expected more than anything. Maybe with the Tigers being a little bit more popular than we would have anticipated, but I still get the thing. I think the Dodgers are overwhelming chalk for me.
So do I. I like the Mariners as my favorite offense on the slate, even though I think they get love. I'm willing to go to all these guys,
Well, and I'll speak for you right here. You have no problem using some of the guys on Seattle that people don't really know, the bottom of the lineup type of guys, and just hoping this wraparound stack just goes off for the day. So it's like Haniger's the guy that probably gets love because he has name recognition.
Yeah,
the rest of these guys don't.
Tom Murphy. Yeah, you're so right. Good point there. And for me, it's a correlation over salary. I don't really care about the price tags that much. Even yesterday, I was making my lineups. I made 3-day lineups, and I was stacking Arizona and Oakland, like I talked about in the video, game stacking that game. So in one I had Ahmed and one I had Andrews. And then in the third one, I had enough money to go with Tatis, even though it was another wrapper on Oakland stack. So I used Tatis over Andrews because obviously Tatis is way better than Andrews. I had the money and I already had Andrews in one. Well, Andrews outscored Tatis. Andrews didn't do much, but he still outscored Tatis. And that's just baseball.
Pitchers, how's the chalk looking today?
Check real quickly. That's a very good question. I got to imagine Urias is the most popular. No, Wheeler, Peralta, Castillo. Urias, a distant fourth.
I don't buy that 100%.
I don't either, but I'm not sure exactly how I would make it. I mean, I do think Urias is the. Yeah, I mean, he's probably my favorite pitcher on the slate.
He's erratic, you know what I mean? But his upside is up there with, Wheeler and Peralta on this slate, right? He's got 4 30-plus point performances in his last 9 starts, just to give you a sample size of what it is he's capable of doing. But, we mentioned Pittsburgh in the beginning. They don't score a lot of runs, but they don't strike out a lot either. They're really boring.
Bueller had 2 Ks against them. And one thing I will say, the Dodgers are notorious for the sticky substance stuff. And we've seen it. They haven't pitched well since this has come out, really. I mean, maybe Urias is one of those guys, too. And like you just mentioned, they do not strike out. So it's not the highest upside spot in the world. That said, Urias, when he's on, can strike out anyone. When he's on, he's got elite stuff. So I'm not necessarily worried about that if he's on today.
I know the more we talk through this, the more I'm like, man, there are good cases to be made for pitchers on this slate. But, I mean, Wheeler and Peralta, these guys just dropped 30 spots left and right. It is easy to afford them, especially since I was already looking at Seattle and Detroit bats in this one, but you've kind of got me on them looking a little bit further. I can just roll with these two fellas right here. Even though I know Peralta, I've talked about his issues, you feel pretty good that these guys are they're going to get you at least 15. And with all the upside in the world for 25 plus.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no doubt about it. I have no arguments.
And I'm with you on all the Castillo points that we addressed. I expected him to get better, even in the season when he was getting shelled every start and walking everybody and giving up home runs. We're maybe it's just a bad year. He'll be back eventually. And maybe last time out was great for his confidence against, division rival.
I'm looking, you're looking at it you just play Peralta and Wheeler. And I'm looking at it man, I'll just play Castillo and Urias. And those are like my favorite two pitchers on the slate, and yours are yours too. That just shows you like how close the options are, in my opinion.
Yeah, and neither one of us has any interest in Anderson.
No, at their respective price points, like those top four are all real close, I think, personally.
Mm-hmm. I like the upside of Zach Wheeler against Atlanta. I think he's going to – they strike out a good amount. They're a good offense, and if he gets hit by Acuna and Freeman and the boys, it happens. Those guys can ball. They are, hitters extraordinary.
You get risk going into that.
Yeah, for sure. But his strikeout upside is right up there, and he's been very impressive this season.
He has. I'll say this, the one offense that I guess I am kind of interested in is Philly. Because the other thing that I didn't even mention it, but we kind of backed around it, Anderson throws a lot of pitches. So that means you're getting into the Atlanta bullpen earlier. I think their best bullpen arm is Josh Tomlin. So that tells you all you need to know.
He can't actually be their best bullpen arm.
He pitches a lot for them. I mean, he is like their main middle reliever.
All right. But not their best one. He can't be. You cannot have Josh Tomlin as your best reliever.
He's okay. I'll give you that.
You remember I sent you a message earlier this year, and I think Atlanta was up like by 5 or 6 runs on Milwaukee going to the 9th, and I'm like, oh, they're bringing in Tomlin, so we still got a chance.
Yeah, yes, I do remember. And
then he gave up a home run on like the first at bat.
Yeah, that's hilarious. This is for a 4-game slate. Like, it's just rare where all the options seem so close.
I agree. I'm afraid of Mike. I might just really load up on the Seattle-Detroit game and then mix and match my pitchers and hope to get that right. And just hope my offense is more of the stabilization point of the build today.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's a smart way to do it today. I struggle to do that always because the way I build, I like to pick my pitchers, but we always say slate dependent. Like, I still will probably pick my pitchers first today, but that doesn't mean it's the right way to do it.
Yeah, and again, I'm not going any deeper than the 4 we talked about either, which usually we both try to limit our pitching options. Like, there's a lot of days where I just play the same 2 guys in all 1 to 3 lineups I use. Obviously, if I use 1 lineup, it's only going to be 2 guys, and you're pretty stubborn on just using 3 guys and 2 if there's 2 that you really, really like.
I hate using more than that. I don't know why. I just do.
Well, it's a point that we address all the time, which is it's really easy if you start entering a bunch of lineups to play everybody.
Yes.
And then you get to a point where you're like, oh, I made 10 lineups and 2 of them are really good, but 8 didn't cash. So great. I made a 7% profit today. And I had 2 really good lineups. Yeah, exactly. I don't think that's a good option.
Yeah, exactly. Like, most of the time, you're not even making a profit unless one of those lines is like amazing. You talked about it yesterday. How many people in those tournaments just double their money? Well, that's what happens most of the time when you cash in tournaments. You just double your money. So if you make 10 lines and only cash in 2, you're probably not having a good night. And that happened. You're so right. I mean, especially on the big baseball slates or like slates like this where there seems to be a bunch of good options.
You said you heard a quote the other week, and it was, in order to get first, you have to be willing to take last. I think in order to be very profitable on the day, you have to be willing to, eat a 0 on your contest winnings and not just, especially for people who enter a bunch of lineups. Like, you have to be okay with them all being 0s if you're going to plant your flag somewhere and really try to go for it.
And people won't. Like, I heard someone say yesterday, like, as far as the showdown slate, like, I didn't play it, but like, people don't want to just, if they play 10 showdown lineups or 15, they don't just want to play Jokic captain in all of them or whoever captain in all of them. And like, I think that's the smart way to do it. If there really is one guy that you think is the best captain.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. So I think that kind of addresses our point. It sounds like I'm gun to head Peralta Wheeler, you're Urias Castillo, and sounds like we're vibing on the last game as far as offense goes. I think we can get on board with Philly's stack is like really, really low owned. I think that makes some sense.
I think Urias versus Wheeler is such a good one because the matchup's better for Urias, obviously, but the strikeout upside's much better for Wheeler.
Well, yeah, and that's where we've often been negative on DraftKings in the sense that they over-reward the strikeout, right? Like, if a guy goes 7 innings, gives up 2 hits, no runs, but only Ks 4 guys, That's a lot better from a real life perspective than a guy who strikes out 10 but gives up 4 runs.
Yeah, like if you're on DraftKings and your guy like makes it through 4 innings and he only has like 1 strikeout, all it takes is one like kind of mini blow up and you're like screwed.
Yeah. The only argument I have against my own argument on that one is then like, I don't know, it gives you a different way to evaluate it then. You know, there's can be more numbers based and stuff like that. Still, I think they should maybe up the innings pitched from 2.25 to like maybe 2.5 and lower the Ks like from 2 points to like 1.75.
Something like that. And also maybe add a quality start. I know they have that on FanDuel. Or I kind of like what you said better. Add the innings pitched like a tiny bit and lower strikeouts a tiny bit.
Yeah, because get me through an inning. That's like for real life.
Dude, like get me through an inning. Just get me through the inning for my pitchers. Like, right? Like that's all I care about.
Like if we go old school and Greg Maddux comes out here and, you know, throws 8 innings, you know, 3-hit ball, doesn't give up any runs, but only Ks 4. I'll take that over Randy Johnson giving up 6 and striking out 11.
Yeah, exactly. But for DFS, you'd much rather have Randy Johnson.
For sure. All right, guys. Good luck today. I'll talk to you about NBA here shortly.
Thanks, guys.